Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, this study exploring unnatural deaths, incidents among Muslims in the West Metropole Cape Town area, and that's a normal study that anyone would do. But then for my BA Honours degree, I decided to approach the problem as I saw it. And so that's what's it about. So this article was also published in the journal, Wasatiyah Journal. And this is a journal that fosters dialogue against diverse linguistic communities as well. So I'm going to start off the presentation discussing the burden of unnatural deaths in South Africa. And this is no surprise, as you may see, that in terms of South Africa, unnatural deaths form a large part of the death rate in our country, 157.8 per 100,000 population. And if you compare this to the rest of the continent, you can see the African average is 139, and the global average is 86, so almost twice. South Africa is almost twice. Well, it's not a secret, we know all that, okay? But if you look at Cape Town itself, the 2, 4, 6, 7, the top 7, out of the top 7, we have six areas falling into the highest in the whole country. Obviously, Joburg is after that, but you can see what we're dealing with. So there are quite a few studies that have been carried out, okay? But in these studies, even in the Cape Town West Metropole Profile government studies, there's been no studies indicating the deaths of various communities or any Islamic groups that have passed away, or Islamic religious-wise. There is no such studies, okay? So that's why I brought about this study. And then further to this, I had to look for solutions. That's where Makassar approach comes in. So the significance of finding out this, as we all know, informs our public health decision making and monitoring social trends as well. And we can plan basically. Now, if we look at some of the studies, for example, the Western Cape Injury Mortality Profile, 2010 to 2018, showed almost 80% the deaths involving men. And in 2018, it accounted for all injury-related deaths and homicide, 38 per 100,000, which actually increased over the years by 2.5, almost 2.6%. So the conclusion in most of the studies involving Western Cape was that an urgent attention needs to be given to identify the risk factors and strategies to prevent injuries, which is a common conclusion for most studies, right? Then I had to look at Muslim communities around the world, or countries in fact. What are other people in Muslim countries or other communities around the world, how are they dying? So I looked at 3 Muslim populous countries, Bangladesh, right? That study which I looked at was a 4-year study, and it was a high, 9,413 unnatural deaths. But of that, 77.2% deaths were due to accidents, and 14.2 were homicides. But if you look at Bangladesh population and social well-being of their state compared to Western Cape, we have to consider those things. Then I looked at Pakistan, and in Pakistan I only looked at one district, Peshawar district, and if any of you, I know Prof. Wadi has been to Pakistan, you would notice the guys sitting in the back of their high aces with bakis and all having machine guns following people around. So Peshawar district showed a large amount of firearms deaths, almost 2,370 firearm deaths. There were bomb explosions as well. So homicide again showed a high rate in this city. Then if you look at Tehran, Iran, that's another place we have looked at, and there 17.8% motor vehicle accidents and 6.1% were intentional injuries. That is 2022. Now we must always look at certain countries, whatever information or studies, you must look at it a little bit of half-sightedness because sometimes it's not 100%. But when you look at other places around the world, like Iraq 10.07, Yemen 6.77, the lowest value was Oman 0.27, and Saudi Arabia was second last of 1.27. Now, when it came to my study, the research questions I looked at is, how has a minority population, a Muslim minority population, how have we contributed to the mortality in Cape Town? Right? That was in that year 2019. What are the causes of the unnatural deaths that our people are experiencing, our community or religious community? And what is the role Maqasid can play in protecting the Muslims that we live in, or provide some solutions? Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the Maqasidal approach, two main authors, Auda 2021 and Kamali, they were really, you cannot talk about Maqasid al-Sharia without picking up their names. Okay, they were the ones, and even till today, when you do your BA honors, they are the books that we use, written by them as well. So what they said is the Maqasid al-Sharia approach is having 5 objectives. That is the protection of life, property, health, religion, and dignity. So the objectives in simple words is applying Islamic knowledge, applying the Quran and its laws to bring about the best for humanity and protecting these 5 objectives. That's the whole idea. So in doing so, there are 5 commonly known essentials, that is preservation of religion, preservation of life, preservation of intellect, lineage, and property. Now, Al-Ghazali, he defines this as the benefit that intended by the lawgiver. So the benefit was intended by the lawgiver for mankind in preservation and protection of religion, life, reason, lineage, and property. So if this is a good thing, right, we call it maslaha. If it's a harmful thing, we call it mafsada. Now, this triangle is very simple. It's divided into 3 aspects, that is your needs, removing difficulties, and comfort. So this is the 3 level, and we look at it at our needs, the 5 objectives as well. Okay? Now, when it comes to life itself, there is no question in the Quran, there is no question in any of our religions' books that life is precious, and Allah makes it very clear that life is sacred and cannot be taken unless in accordance with justice. And similarly, suicide and road traffic accidents as well, you can look. Allah prohibits self-destruction, and do not voluntarily bring about your own destruction. So there's no question to that. But then, this continues. We've had cases in the mortuary where we've had 2-year-olds, 1.5-year-olds crawling on the floor, playing in their own houses and being shot by crossfire. Ladies hanging clothes, even looking at the window and being shot, right? So you see the headings come across around every time. So this study here was a retrospective qualitative study, and we looked at the Muslim population. I divided it into 2 parts. First, I looked at the unnatural deaths for the year, right? So this is the area here we're looking at, the Salt River, the upper area. So we looked at two phases. Number one, the year 2019, the unnatural deaths. And amongst the unnatural deaths, how many of them were Muslim? And all out of that, how many of them were unnatural? Okay? So that's how we looked at it. For those who wondered where we are now, we are no more at Salt River Mortuary, the old mortuary. This is our new mortuary, just in front of Kurtiskir. It's called the Off-P, right? And this is our new building, state of the art. It's got scans, it's got toxi, odontology, it's got molecular, it's got everything in one building. So in 2019, 4,205 cases were done, and out of that, 1,020 were natural, and 2,625 were unnatural. Now, looking at the Muslim population here, the total Muslim deaths, 313, unnatural, 241. And if you look at the male and female ratio, male 2,205, female 36. Further breaking it down, you'll notice the age group between 21 and 50, males, that is where we're losing our Muslim brothers. And what's about that age? That is a peak earning age, peak reproductive age, peak active age of a human being, 21 and 50, right? Females, very similar, 21 and 41, but if you notice the last few years in females are more constant, right throughout, okay? If you look at the manner of death, homicide, again, right? And of homicide, gunshots were the highest, right? Then accidents were next, and then of note as well, I'll show you the numbers now. If you look at this, in the males, we had the shots and the stab, right? But more importantly as well, we had hangings. And you know what? When you see a 12-year-old boy who hung himself because his parents couldn't buy him new clothes to go to school in the new year, that's the only reason he hung himself. And being a Muslim as well. I'm not saying it's less painful for any other, but I'm just giving you an example. Okay? My time is flying. So unnatural causes, right, reflect and prevent prevalence of crime, violence, and safety in South Africa. We know about that. The mortality from unnatural causes has fluctuated over the years, but homicides remain in most vast majority. And the distribution of causes of death between sexes also differs significantly. So it comes to recommendations now, right? We obviously need greater research and we need greater examination of the unnatural deaths, right? Also, one significant thing I never point out here, hanging and strangulation amongst females showed a significant number compared to other religious or the general population as well. So interpersonal violence plays an important role in our community. And if you ask anybody, during Ramadan, the mortuary tends to be slowed down. The Rape Crisis Center, I worked there for 12 years as well, slowed down. You hardly get cases in the crisis center, Rape Crisis Center, during these months. So it is preventable, what I'm saying, right? So to avoid further rises in mortality, gender-specific programs and interventions must be developed. Now, if you look at the other recommendation, obviously we need to look at rural versus urban. We need sub-economic different groups, as well as the degree of education and poverty. All those studies still need to be looked at, okay? I was thinking about doing a 10-year study, maybe do a master's degree, but I think I had a bit of a break in between. Anyways, Now, when we look at the role of Maqasid here, remember the whole role is to eradicate and control community issues. Social well-being must be considered. And when somebody is killed, there are three rights which are affected. The rights of Allah, the rights of the victim, and the rights of the victim's next of kin as well. So all three have to be considered, right? So we need to develop a sense of high regard for life and Islam and uphold our children from a young age in order to prevent them from being influenced by false ideologies. Then, from Islamic point of view, we also further need more studies, right? In conclusion, can be stated the punishment of qiyas is applied by Sharia law. It has the potential to reduce the incident of other crimes as well. But more importantly, punishment by qiyas is applied by Sharia law and has potential to reduce the incidence of murder. But then there are other ways as well we can reduce it. Number one, we can look at specific social community groups putting together, for example, a fund to help those who have died in accidents, help their families, help their children to get jobs or get licenses so they can learn to do some job. Number one. Number two, the whole idea of blood money, dear, helping to pay, helping the families who have lost men and earning people to develop some sort of income so that they can get out of that, that strangled hold of being in that group of not that social poverty group, so they can free themselves and allow themselves the freedom. So I wanted to take this message that it is not enough to condemn such incidents. We often see it on social or wherever. Within our hearts, we must be open and active condemning such brutality, not just as the social media, but also our masjids, social circles, through educational institutions like ours, and through other available forums. We must demand that the rulers provide safety to our citizens. Now, one more quick thing. If you're looking, I know my time is up, just 10 seconds, because just one thing to think about the future. If you look at the population in Western Cape, right, the females at the moment stand about 200,000 more than the males at the moment. If you continue at this trajectory for the next 10 years, the males continue to be murdered at this rate, because remember, it's not a single digit, it's a double digit. There will come a time in the Western Cape where we will have an enormous female population, but not enough of male population, right? And the consequences of that is enormous. So that's my message. May Allah enable Muslims to establish justice on their lands. Ameen. Shukran so much. Appreciate it.